Hello YouTube, welcome back to the channel. So in today's tutorial, we're going to go ahead and learn how to build a simple WebSocket application. We're going to learn how to build a simple chat application using WebSocket. So if you're anyone who is new to WebSocket, you're wondering what WebSocket is and all of that, don't worry, we're going to cover everything in this tutorial and I'm going to explain to you everything that you'll be doing. And if, from the knowledge that you're going to learn, you're going to go ahead and build a simple chat application using WebSockets in Flask. Okay, so we're going to be using Python for this. You're also going to use a bit of JavaScript, Bootstrap for the styling and the forms and other things like that. So let me just show you how the app works. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and simply try to join us, and I'm going to say, let me say John Doe. So let me say I want to join us John Doe, and then the room name I just say, let's say chat room. Okay, and then I'm just going to go ahead and press submit. So once I submit, you can say John Doe has joined the chat room. So you can see chat room, the room is chat room. Okay, so I'm going to go here and I'm going to join as Janet Doe, and I'm going to go ahead and pass in the room here. I'm going to say chat room, which is the same room as the one in which John Doe is at. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and submit, and as you can see, I can see that Janet Doe has joined the room, and on the side of John Doe, we can see that it has been indicated that Janet Doe has joined the room. So John Doe now is aware of Janet Doe presence in the room. Okay, so once we have that, we can begin to chat. So let me just say John Doe is going to say hello Janet, and then you're going to go ahead and simply post it. So once we post it, you can see it's posted here, and this guy is going to go ahead and receive it. You can see from John Doe, and he's saying hello Janet. And Janet can respond to say hello John, hello John. John being a while. Okay, just a simple chat. Okay, so post this, and then you can see it has appeared also here. So you can see also here hello John, been a while. Yeah, and then that's the simple chat application, and you can decide to leave the room if you want to. You can leave the room, and once it's left, you can see that Janice Doe is now aware of John Doe leaving the room. So that's basically the application that we're going to go ahead and build. So before we even begin to build these applications, let's learn what socket.io is. Okay, what WebSockets are. Okay, so let's just jump into it. So what's a WebSocket basically? So WebSockets, for example, let's say that you have a server, right, and you want to let's say that you have only one machine connected to the server. At this point, you have this machine connected to this server, right? And let's say that this machine on this machine we have a web application that is constantly going to display real-time data. So how can it display real-time data? Means that it needs to constantly talk with the server in order to get the real-time data. Well, the one way we can one way we can think of doing this is, okay, we can just refresh the browser every time, right, the web application every time, so you can send a new request to the server and then get the new data. Yes, that's gonna work, but really, who wants to be updating the web browser every time? How do you even know that there's a new data that you need to collect, right? So that is not like feasible. So another way you can do it is also like write a program that will make a new request to the server within every set of fixed intervals, right? You can use set timeout, and then after every timeout, you can make a new request to the server and pull out the new data. Now that's also another not absolutely real time, because a data must occur, but the front end didn't make a request, so it's unaware of that data. So if you want to make a real-time application, then that would be a bit biased, right? A bit biased. So one way you can do this is actually creating using a WebSocket. So a WebSocket is what a WebSocket simply does is simply create a connection between the server and the client, which is constantly open, right? So the connection is constantly open between the server and the client. So the server is constantly feeding data to the clients, right? So that's the real-time data because it's constantly flowing. So how does it work? So how a WebSocket works is that a client is simply going to send a HTTP request to the backend. The backend is going to accept that HTTP request, and if it wants to create a connection, it's going to send a 101 switching protocol request to the client, and then from there a connection will be created. So once a connection is created, the constant data flow will be between the two, right? So the client will constantly be receiving data from the server, and the server constantly be sending data to the client. So it's going to create a TCP connection that is going to be constantly open and sending data. So this, if you've done a bit of networking, we call that one a full duplex, right? Full duplex connection. So that's basically it. So another use of WebSockets is broadcasting. For example, you have a bunch of servers, a bunch of clients connected to the server, and once something happens or one of the clients send a message to the server, you want to broadcast this message to all the other clients. Like in our chat applications, right? Once let me just go back here. Once John Doe sends a message, the message goes to the server, and the server broadcasts it to the whole room, right? all the clients in that specific room, right? In that case, our room was called chat room, right? So to broadcast the message to all clients that are within that chat room. So Janet Doe just happens to be one of the clients within the chat room, so that's why Janet Doe gets the message, right? So that's one of the other uses of WebSockets, and you test for broadcasting messages out to all clients, right? So within a specific room or something like that. So for example, maybe on Telegram, right, and someone sends a message, right, all of you within the room, you get that message, right? That's broadcasted to all of you, and that's one of the uses of WebSockets. So yeah, that's basically it. As I was showing you, for example, let's say that this is John Doe. So John Doe can send a message to the server. The server then broadcasts the message to all the other clients because they have a socket connection created, right? Socket IO connection created between all the computers connected. So there's a full-time connection between them. So when John Doe sends a message, the message is broadcasted to Janice Doe and any other one who is connected to the server. And if Janice Doe sends a message to the server is broadcast the message to all the other ones. So it broadcasts the message to John Doe and any other person is connected to the room or the server. Okay, so that's basically how WebSockets can work. So let's see how you can build this web application using Flask. So this way the web application was running, so I'm just going to go ahead and simply exit out of this and then simply go into another terminal. So I'm just going to go in here, and in here, we're going to go ahead and create a folder for application, our project folder. So I'm going to say mkdir, and I'm going to simply call it let's say flask socket app. Okay, so socket chat app. So I'm just so indecisive on which title to use right now. So once I have this, I'm going to change directory into my Flask socket app. So once I'm in there, socket chat app. So once I'm in that folder, you can see if I do an ls, there's nothing inside of it. If you're on Windows, that same command is dir, okay? But on Linux and MacBook, it's gonna be ls. So you can see that now I have no content inside of my folder. Great. So let's go ahead and just only create a virtual environment because I don't want to install my dependencies within a global Python environment. So this command I'm going to use is only going to work for Linux and Mac users. So if you're on Windows, the command to create a virtual environment on your machine is going to be a bit different. Just click a quick Google look at how to create a virtual environment on Windows. Okay, so once I have let's say that you know the command to create if you're using Windows. Again, you don't create a virtual environment if you don't want. I'm just creating a virtual environment because I want my global Python environment to be free from cluttered libraries that I necessarily don't use. Okay, so I'm just going to create a virtual environment. If you don't create a virtual environment, feel free to skip this step. Okay, so to create a virtual environment for guys who are on MacBooks and Linux machine, you have to say source and then Python. You have to simply say Python 3 -m and then -m venv and then venv. So it's going to create a virtual environment called venv. So it's going to create a folder on a machine called venv. So if I do an ls right now, so if I do ls, you can see I have the folder there called venv, and venv stands for virtual environment. This is environment, and the v stands for virtual, right? So virtual environment. So that's it. So once we have this created, now we have to activate our virtual environment. Again, this command is only going to work for guys who are using MacBooks and Linux machine. For Windows, the command to activate the virtual environment is a bit different. Okay, so I'm just going to activate my virtual environment. So I'm going to say source venv /bin /activate, just like that, and this is going to go ahead and activate our virtual environment. So once the virtual environment is activated, you can notice the name of the virtual environment within parentheses in front of the line within the terminal. That indicates that your virtual environment is created. Good. So once you have this done, I'm just going to go ahead and open up my favorite text editor. I'm going to use Visual Studio Code for this tutorial. Feel free to use any editor that you're comfortable using. So once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and create a simple folder, and I'm going to call this one socket. I'm going to call it, sorry, it's going to be socket IO, right? Socket IO. Socket IO, this is IO, not IT. So socket IO, and then you can say app, just like that. So socket IO app, and then press enter. So instead of this app, one thing before we move inside of this folder, let's create another file in here called run.py, and this is just a basic setup for Flask applications. Okay, if you're not the base of Flask, I have a lot of videos on my channel about Flask, so you can just watch any of those videos about Flask, and it gives you a basic introduction to Flask. Okay, so I'm not going to explain how my architected design pattern I'm using for arranging my folders. You can just check that out in my original Flask videos, and I explain this in depth. Okay, so once I have this created, I'm simply going to go ahead inside of my socket IO app folder, and I'm going to create an __ init underscore dot py file, so dot py, just like that. So once I have this created, this is going to be our initialization points. Okay, so for now, just leave this as it is, and instead of our socket.io app template folder, you're going to go ahead and create another folder. You're going to call this folder templates. If you okay, so we're going to keep the full templates in here. Again, if you want to create any static file, you have static, maybe CSS or other thing, you can put in static folder, and then that will also work. Okay, but in this case, you're going to be using Bootstrap, so we're going to be writing our own CSS, because if we write our own CSS, that's to take the focus away from socket.io and then into CSS, right? So we're going to be using Bootstrap just to keep things simple. Okay, cool. So once we have this running, let's go ahead and make sure that we install all the libraries that we need. So I'm just going to go in here and let me just move this to another window. So I have this right here. Good. So once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and install a couple of libraries. So the libraries that I want to go ahead and install, I can just do a pip freeze, and then I'm just going to go ahead and pip freeze and then press enter. So this is going to go ahead and show you all the libraries that you're going to be using. So these are all the libraries that you need to use, but the thing that you have to do, you have to install Flask, you have to install Flask session, and you have to install flask-socketio. So let's go ahead and install those three libraries. So I'm just going to go ahead and go back in here, and in here I'm just going to go ahead and simply run the command to install Flask session and flask-socketio. Okay, so I'm going to say pip install flask hyphen session, and then this is session, and then I'm going to install flask hyphen flask is going to be socket IO. Okay, so run the command, and that should go ahead and install all those libraries for us. So just give it some more time, and that's done, and you can see we have all the libraries installed. So make sure that you activate your virtual environment before running this command to install the libraries, or else to be installed in a global Python environment. Okay, so once we do that, great. So we can actually go ahead and create a requirements.txt file. Just in case you're pushing this to GitHub, anyone can look at it in the future and then know which libraries you use, right? Because even yourself you can forget. So just say pip freeze, and then you're going to say requirements.txt, so .txt, and then press enter. So you're going to create a requirement.txt file, and you can just cut the requirement to see the content. You just say requirement.txt, and you can see the content in there. Great. And that's the same content as we have in here, right? So great. So once we have all that done, that shows that you have all the libraries installed and you are ready to go and jump into coding. So the first thing I'm going to go ahead and do, I'm going to say, instead of my underscore init file, which is this file right here, I'm going to say from Flask, I'm going to go ahead and import Flask, just like that. I'm going to say app equals to just say Flask with the capital F, and I'm going to say underscore name underscore. Okay, and for the design pattern that you're using, you're going to go ahead and say I'm going to say from sockets IO app, which is the folder. I'm going to go ahead and import route. So we are going to go ahead and create another file here, which is called route. So we say routes.py. Okay, just like that. Okay, so now you have routes.py here imported. Good. So once you also have run.py imported, so once we have the instance of the Flask application created, let's go into our routes.py folder and import it. So I'm going to say from socket IO app, right? We're going to go ahead and import, and socket IO app is the name of this folder right here. We're going to go ahead and import app, just like that. So once I have app imported, I can simply say you can just use this to create a simple route to return to us a given template, or just a simple hello world. And how do you do that? You can just simply say, do you use the @ symbol and say app.route. You're going to simply say this is going to be / just like this. You're simply going to go ahead and say the methods that are allowed for this route. So methods is going to be equals to a list, and then you're going to go ahead and say post. Let's say get method, and post method. So make sure all these are in upper cases, right? So get and post method, you're going to have def index, and you're going to go ahead and return also going to go ahead and return is always going to go ahead and return let's say hello world, just like that. So once we have this done, great. So I can just go back into my run.py file, which is up here, and run.py file. I'm just going to go ahead and import the following. So I'm going to say from socket IO app, which is the name of this folder. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to import app, just like that. So I'm going to say if underscore name right equals to quote mark underscore main underscore, and you're just going to go ahead and simply say app app.run, and you can say debug is equals to true in case you want to allow debug, and then go ahead and save that. So once we have that done, I'm just keep an extra line here. So once we have that done, you can also install AutoPep 8 for just like for proper formatting of your Python code, and making sure that you follow the Python convention. So just save that. So once we have this done, you can simply go ahead and run this. So I'm just going to go into my terminal and then look, do an ls to see where I am. So I mean, you can see I have the Python run.py file in view. So I can simply do Python 3 and then run.py file and then run. So once I have this done, you can simply copy this. So you can see that it's running at localhost or at port 8 at port 5000. So I'm just going to copy this. So this is the localhost and then colon the name of the port. So you can actually change the name of the port if you want, but I'm just going to keep things simple and you're going to use the same port. So I'm just going to go ahead and open another window right here and simply paste it and run it. So you can see that now you're getting back hello world just right here. So good. That shows everything is working as we expect it to. So great. So once I have this done, I can just go back in here, go back into my VS Code, and now you can actually go ahead and write some templates, right? So to write some templates, what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and create a file. It just will be called basic we can call it base.html, and you're going to, all our templates are going to inherit from this. Okay, if you know about template inheritance in Flask, then there's no need to worry, just follow along with the tutorial. But I'm not going to go into depth explaining template inheritance. If you want to really understand template inheritance, check out my videos on Flask specifically. So I don't want to like waste a lot of time because some of you guys are probably familiar with these things, so I don't want to waste a lot of time with this. So I'm going to say base.html. So base.html, I'm going to say exclamation and press enter, and VS Code that will simply give you a basic HTML layout, right? So I'm going to say chat app, just give it a title called chat app. Okay, and then inside here we need to go ahead and we need Bootstrap. So let me just go ahead and get the Bootstrap CDN. So I'm just going to go in here and just say bootstrap. Okay, so let's search for Bootstrap on Google, and we're going to get the Bootstrap CDN. And once we have the Bootstrap CDN, we're going to use the CDN for our styling, because I don't want to use any CSS, which might take us a lot of time, and the whole point of this video is not about using CSS and HTML. So just search for Bootstrap and simply go under the CDN section, and once you're here, just copy this right here, just copy this, and you can go back into a VS Code and just paste everything, just replace everything you have done so far, just replace it. And then the title, we're going to go ahead and call it chat app. Okay, so let's change back to chat app, just like that. So we have that there and we are good to go. So once we have that chat app, now we can just go ahead and simply create another template that is going to inherit from this template. Okay, so I'm not going to explain template inheritance in depth, so I already said that already, so I'm not going to go ahead and explain template inheritance in depth. Okay, so once I have that done, I want to go ahead and simply we can create a simple navbar for application. So if I just go ahead and go this side, so I can even go ahead and go to my GitHub and then search for Prince. Okay, and let me just go online. So just search for Prince Grumper GitHub. Okay, and this is my GitHub, and you can find my GitHub stuff there. So I'm going to also drop the link to this GitHub repository. It's going to be in the description of this video in case you guys are interested in this. The code, you can just go from there, and I advise to get the code from there. So if I go into my repositories right here, and I go into my flask.io, so once I go in there, I can simply go ahead and simply get the code from there and save us a lot of time. So I can just go ahead and go into socket.io folder, and in there I'm just going to go into templates, and I'm going to go into base, and I'm going to go ahead and get that template. Okay, so just wait for this to load up. Okay, so into base, and then into base I want to get the navigation bar, right? This is a Bootstrap navigation bar, and if you don't want to use mine, you can go here and then search for Bootstrap. So let's say navbar, so navbar, and then simply search for a navigation bar right here. So there are a lot of navigation bars if you want to use. I just copy this navigation bar and edit a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab the one from my repository, so we don't waste a lot of time. So there's a navigation bar right here, and I'm just going to go ahead and copy the navigation bar and just simply go in here and simply paste it here. That's all, and hit save to save that and format the code. So that's all we have, just our navigation bar. So good. So once we have this navigation bar, now we're going to go ahead and create a set of containers. So I'm going to say dot container. So these are just Bootstrap classes. Instead of a container, I'm going to go ahead and create a row. Instead of the row, I'm going to go ahead and create a call md, and we're going to call md-8, and then simply press enter right there. So I'm going to go ahead and simply copy it and paste it 2 more times, and this is going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and change from 3, and I'm going to change it to be 6, and I'm going to also give it a margin top, and I'm going to give it a margin top of 3. Okay, so don't worry about this Bootstrap class. If you're not Bootstrap, this is just for styling. Don't worry about it. Again, the whole code is on my GitHub repository, so if you have any issues, just go ahead and copy the code, so you don't have to worry about the CSS and focus mostly on the socket.io pattern, how it works. So this is basically what you're go ahead. Bootstrap is divided into 12 columns, so we're going to create 3 columns on the left, 3 columns on the right, and then 6 columns in the middle, where we're going to keep our forms and other web content, right? So in here, I'm just going to go ahead and add in the blog content. So I'm going to go ahead and add in the blog content. Again, I'm not going to explain this about how template inheritance works in Flask. So I'm going to say blog content, okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and end that blog content. Okay, so I'm going to say end blog, just like end blog content. You can also say end blog content if you want, and then save that. Okay, so once I have this done, I'm going to go ahead and create another file in here. I'm going to call this file index.html. So index.html, you're going to go ahead and inherit this template right here, and if you inherit this template, you can override whatever we keep inside of our web application, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and simply say blog content. I'm going to go ahead and say extends, this is going to be extends, and then say main.html. It's going to sorry, it's going to be base.html, because we call this file base.html. So base.html. Okay, so we're going to inherit from base.html, and you're going to override the content of the blog content section. So blog content, I'm going to go ahead and simply copy that and paste it here, and then simply say end blog content. So end blog content, just like that. So we have it here and good. So you can just simply return a let's say h3 h2 and say hello world. Okay, and then save that. So great. So once we have this done here, this is simply going to go ahead and inherit from the from the base.html. This is going to inherit everything inside of this file, except the only thing that you're going to override is what goes inside of this div. Okay, so everything else is going to be inherited. Again, if you want to understand how template inheritance work, check out my video on introduction to Flask. I explained this in depth, but basically you're going to inherit everything except what is inside of this content block, and what is inside of the content block is what you have defined is as this h2 tag. So the navigation bar will be present, everything else will be present, all this will be there. The only thing that is going to be different is what is going to be inside of this block content that we specified here. In this case, it's going to be a h2 tag. So once we have that done, I'm going to go back into my code, and once I'm inside my code, I need to modify a couple of things. Okay, once I'm inside of my route file, rather, I need to modify a couple of things. So from Flask, I'm going to say from Flask, I'm going to go ahead and import this is going to be called render or render template, and in here I'm going to say return, and I'm going to say return render template, and I'm going to go ahead and change what I want to. So I pass in the name of the template that I want to return. So make sure that this folder is called templates. Okay, it's plural, not singular. So templates. So once you specify the name of the template here, a Flask will know that it's going to go ahead and find it instead of templates. So if you don't use the name templates, then you're going to have an error. Okay, so we say templates.html. So Flask knows that I'm going to go inside of this folder and look for this file called index.html. So make sure that you have this folder named templates. Okay, so once you have this done, let's go back and try to run the server again. So let me just clear this and let's run the server again. So once the server is running, you can go back in here, which is running on this port. You can just refresh this. Now you can see we have the navigation bar and also have hello world. Okay, so great. So now this is how template inheritance work in Flask, just on the surface level. So if you want to delve deeper into template inheritance, you can check out my videos on template inheritance on my other videos on introduction to Flask. Okay, so once I have this done, great. So we have everything set up and we are ready to go. So what we need to do in here, we need to do a couple more things. Okay, so the first thing we're going to go ahead and do, you're going to go ahead and go into our underscore init folder. So instead of our underscore init .py file, not folder, right, .py file, what you're going to go ahead and do here, we need to go ahead and import a couple of things and create a couple of instances. So I'm going to go ahead and say from flask underscore session, I'm going to go ahead and import a session object. I'm going to also say from session class, rather. So from flask-socketio. So going from flask-socketio, we're going to go ahead and import the sockets.io. Okay, So this is a class and this is a class, so make sure that I always start with uppercases, right? So once we have this done, I'm going to go ahead and set a couple of things. So we need to set a secret key, so we need to set up a configuration for our session type. Basically, we're going to be using a Flask file system. And if you want to check how sessions work in Flask, I have a whole video on how to manage sessions in Flask, so you can check out that video on how to manage sessions in Flask. Okay, so I'm going to leave a link all that in the description. If I don't, then kindly remind me in the comment section, or you can go on the main channels page and find it. Okay, so sorry for my bad if I forget, but hopefully I don't forget this. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually set configuration. So config, so let's say app config. So app configs right here. So I'm going to say app.config .config, and I'm going to go ahead and pass in the following. So I'm going to say secret, and the secret is going to be equals to, and you're going to pass in any secret. You can just pass in any random value as your secret. I'm going to say app.config. But if you're working on a real life project, you don't want to keep this you want to keep this instead of an env file and then refer to it. Okay, it's bad practice to specify your secrets directly inside of your code. So you might create a .env file and then install python.env library, and then use the .env library to load the values from the environment variable, from the environment folder, right, file basically. So in here, you're going to go ahead and say session underscore type, and the session type is going to be equals to this is going to be a file system, just like that. So once you have this, I'm just going to go ahead and save this code right here. So okay, let me just save. Okay, let me just leave this one at the bottom because I think the Python convention, like auto pep 8 is moving it up, but I just want to leave it at the bottom here. Okay, let's leave it at the bottom here, right here. Okay, so once you have this, you're going to create a session object. And you're going to pass in the Flask app that you just created, and then finally you're going to make sure that our sessions are managed by Flask and not by flask-socketio, right? So I'm going to say socketio, right, which is socket this will be lowercase. So we say socketio is going to be equals to, you're going to simply say socketio, and then you pass in the app instance, and you're going to say manage underscore session is going to be equals to false. So manage session is going to be equals to false, meaning that we don't want flask-socketio to manage our sessions. Rather, we want to manage our sessions ourselves by using the Flask session manager. Okay, so make sure that you change this to be capital S, because it's the name of this class that you're referring to right here. So you're creating an object or an instance of that class. So once we created an object or instance of that class, we can go back into our main.py file in here, and instead of our routes.py file, and instead of our route.py file, that's we're going to go ahead and write our sessions. So that's we're going to go write all the sessions to deal with receiving the messages, broadcasting messages, creating rooms, receiving users, storing the users in sessions, and all of that. So let's go ahead and do it. So it's actually a few lines of code, so it's not that long, but yeah, let's jump into it. So let's say we're going to say at app.join. So at app.join, and then you're going to go ahead at app.route. So at app.route, and you're going to simply say / this route is going to be called join. So if you go to / join, you're going to get this route, and the methods that are allowed in this route. So methods is going to be a list of methods. You're going to allow a get method and a post method. A post method allows our forms to be posted to this route, and a get method allows the user to receive content from this route. So we're going to say def to say join, which is the name of the function under this route. Okay, so we're going to check if we're going to check for a post method. So we're going to say check for a post method right here. So what I'm going to do, we say if we say request, so we need to import request from Flask. Okay, so you're going to go ahead and import request from Flask. I'm going to go ahead here and say request, which is right here. Okay, so we are going to say request if request dot method equals to, we're going to check if the request method is going to be a post method. So if it's a post method, then probably we're getting a form submitted to this route, right? So it's a post method. Maybe the user created a chat and is posting that chat. So we're going to simply say we're going to simply go ahead and say user name. We're going to get the username from the form, and it's going to be the content of that form. So username is going to be of type string. So we say of type str, and this is going to be using type. I'm going to be using type hints, okay, just at some point, because type hints are becoming like modern Python. So from my videos, I think gradually we should be moving to type hints. So I'll be including type hints once in a while in my videos. Again, if you're new to type hints and want to understand type hints and how they work, check out my video on type hints and how to use type hints in in Python. Okay, I have a whole video on that, so like almost like 40 minutes video explaining how type hints work, so you can check that video out. So we're going to say username is going to be equals to, now you're going to go ahead and say request, right? Request dot form dot, and then you're going to go ahead and get the username. So we're going to say username. But what is this form? Okay, what is this form that you're trying to get access to? So we need to go ahead and actually create the form, and then we need to come back here. So for now we can just leave this as it is. Now let's go ahead and actually create another HTML file that consists of a form that you can receive inputs from. So this form that we're going to create is going to be called we're going to simply call this, we're going to put it under templates folder, and in templates folder we're going to call it let's say chatroom.html. okay, so we're going to go ahead and create a file in here. We're going to call it chatroom.html. okay, just like that. So inside of this file, we're going to go ahead and paste some content in here that's going to go ahead and just going to be a simple form that you're going to be using. So let me just go ahead and grab this from my GitHub page, because I don't want you to see me like typing out all of that form. It's just the normal basic HTML form with a bit of Bootstrap added to it. So I'm just going to go ahead and get this from my GitHub page, and you guys can get access to all this code from my GitHub. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy everything in here. I'm going to go ahead and delete some things because we don't need them for now. We'll come back to them just in a second. So I'm just going to go ahead and simply paste it in here. And one thing I'm going to delete is this whole script part. That's going to deal with the socket.io part from JavaScript. We'll look at it more later on. So that's basically it. So that's basically the folder that we have in here, the form that we have in here, and yeah, that's basically it. And that's going to go ahead and create a simple form for us that you can use. Okay, good. So once we have this done, we are ready to go. But the one thing is that we don't actually we also need one more thing, which is going to be this is going to handle if a person joins a chat room. Now let's create a form that can enable people to sign into chat rooms, and that is going to be we're going to place that inside of our index.html folder. So go back to my GitHub page and grab this from my GitHub page. I don't want you to waste your time like me typing this out, so I'm just going to get it from here and then simply post it in here. So post it in there. Now you can see this, everything remains the same, right? So base.html, we are inheriting from base.html, we are overriding the content of the blog content section. So that's basically it. So we just have a form in here, and the form is going to go ahead and submit it to join. So we're going to say URL4, and URL4 we're going to submit it to join. And why join? Because if you go back to our routes, we call this a route join. So we're going to submit our form to this join section. So once the form is submitted, you're going to check if this method is going to be a post method. And if you go back to our index here, you can see you have said the method is going to be a post method for our form. So if you're going to be in our router checking if it's a post method, we're going to go ahead and grab the username and other information from the form. And if you go back the form and look at the form closely, we have the name attributes, and this is what you're referring to here. Okay, so these are the name attributes that you're referring to here. So you have the name attributes as username, and also have the name attribute as room number. So these are the two things that you want to pick from this form when the form is submitted. So let's go ahead and grab it. So this will grab for us the username. Now let's go ahead and grab the room number from the form. So we say room underscore let me just say room underscore number, and the room number is going to be the number of the room that the user wants to join. So room number, and the room number is going to be of type string. So let me just say of type string, and this is going to be equals to the following. So the room number is going to be of type string, and it's going to be request.form, and then you're going to go ahead and grab the room number. So room number, room name, right? I think I call this room name. So if I go in here, yeah, I called it room name. So that's what I'm using right here, room name. So remember, these are the names of these fields, right? Not the name attribute and not the ID attribute. Sometimes people use the name attribute when the ID attributes. They only pass in the ID attribute, thinking that they can use the ID attribute here. No, you have to use the name attribute in getting the access to the form data in Flask. Okay, so once we get it, once we get the information, we're going to go ahead and simply store it in session. So we're going to say store in session. So we're going to go ahead and store that information in session. So I'm going to say session, and we need to go ahead and import session. We need to import session from here. So we're going to go ahead and import session. We're going to go ahead and say from Flask. We're also going to go ahead and import session. So session right here. So we're going to go ahead and import session, and you're going to go down here and use session. So we're going to say session. You're going to store this in a session, and what you're going to go ahead and simply do in here, you're going to say session, and you're going to say username, and the username of that session is going to be the username that we got from the form. You're also going to create another session data, and this session data is going to be called, let's say it's going to be called the room underscore name. So the room name is another session, okay, another session, and let me just change this from room number to room name, right? Okay, good. So we're going to create the room name is going to be equals to the room name right there. So we have the room name and the username be stored in the session. Okay, so once you have that being stored in the session, and this session is going to be unique for each individual, right? So you're going to go ahead and simply return a template and then redirect the user to now the chat room, and the chat room template is going to be this HTML file that simply consists of a form and a text area where the users can put text in and then upload text, right? I'll show you this just in a second how it works, or you can just open up this in live server. You can just open up this in live server, and let's wait for it to open up. You can see how it looks like here. Great. Okay, so yeah, that's how it looks like, because you're not inheriting from it's not a pure HTML like HTML file, because we're going to be using the extending and inheritance in Python. That's how it looks like this. But this basically how it's gonna look. There'll be an input the field here, and then you can type in what's on your mind. You can post it, you can leave the chat room and stuff like that. Okay, so once we have this done, let's go back and let me just close all this, and I open up that using live server. So if you don't have live server, you can go ahead and install the live server just by going to extensions. I think extension is this part extension. Yeah, I think this is extension, but you can just install the live server extension. Okay, so now we're just going to go ahead and return the template file. Okay, say return. So let me just say return. So let's actually place return in front of this. So return render template, and then you're going to go ahead and specify the name of the template. And name of the template is chat room.html. So Flask is going to go under templates folder, and it's going to look for this chat room.html file and then return it, right? So that's basically it. And if you look closely, instead of our chat room.html, we are referring to this right here. So we're referring to variable called session name session, and then session we are getting the room number from the room name from the session. So this is how you refer to variables from your Flask application. And how do you pass variables inside here? To pass variables, you have to go in here and then simply say session, and then simply equals to session. So if a person goes inside of your template and refers to this, it's going to actually get access to these values that you have passed in. So instead of our template, you have to use the two curly braces and then the two closing curly braces. You're getting access to the session and you're getting the room name. So it's going to be room and then maybe chat room or dancing room, whatever room name it is. Okay, and the room name is what is specified by the user when joining a given chat room. So great. Once we have that, we're going to have an else statement. What if the request type is not a post request? What you're going to go ahead and do, you're going to handle going to check if the user is already logged in, and if the user is already logged in, you're simply going to return the user to the chat room template. If the user is not logged in, if the user is not logged in, it's just going to return the user back to the home page, because maybe the user is already logged in but refreshes that page. But if the user refreshes that page, then we want to redirect the user back to the chat room because he's already inside of the chat room. But if he's not inside of the chat room, then you're going to redirect the user to the part will be required to fill the form and join a room, which is going to be the index.html file. Okay, so once I have this done, I'm just going to say it's going to be handle logged let me just logged in users. Okay, this is already logged in, so I'm going to check if the username exists within the session. So if session, right, if session, okay, let me get right, if session dot get, what do you want to get? You want to get the user name, right? So you want to get the username, and then you say is not none. So checking if the username is not none means the username exists. What do you want to do? You want to go ahead and do the following. So we're going to return the user back to the chat room template, which is going to be this template right here. I'm just going to copy it and simply paste it here and save that. Great. So once we have this done, you're going to say else. What if the user is not logged in? Else, you're going to simply return the user back to the index page, index.html. So return redirect. So I'm going to say return, and I'm going to go ahead and import two things from here. So I'm going to import URL4, and URL4, remember we use URL4 in the index page. We use URL4 at this point right here, which is going to show the point to the route to post the form to is going to be the join route. So you're going to import the URL for. You're also going to import redirect right here. So in I'm going to simply use the redirect to redirect to a given route. So we're going to redirect to the index route, and the index route sorry, redirect, and you have to say I forgot one thing here. So you have to say URL for, and then parentheses, and then paste that index there. So we're going to redirect to the URL for index, and index is the name of this function, right? The name of the function right here. So make sure it's the name of the function and not the name of the route. Okay, so good. So even if join here referring to the name of the route, okay, and but for here we're going to return we're going to referring to the name of the function, which is right here. Okay, that's basically it for the join part. So we can actually test this out and see if it works. So let's go ahead and actually check it out. So let's go say, let me just keep a print statement here and just say logged in chat room, just like that, just to allow the user that they have been logged into the chat room. So let's go ahead and let's start our development server and make sure everything is working. So we click terminal and then run that code again. So go back in here and then refresh this. Now you should see a form in here. So I can just say prints, and then I can just type in chat room here and then simply say submit, and then it has redirected me to the chat room right here. And if you look inside of my terminal, you should have print logged in chat room right there. So great. So everything works as we expect it to. Now the only part is left is now to create the ability for the users to be able to send chats to each other, and let's go ahead and do that. So when the user posts a chat here and then post, you want to get that the info, the chat that he wants to, whatever he typed inside of this input field, and then we want to send it to broadcast it to everyone inside of that room. So that's what you're going to do right now. So let's go ahead and jump into doing that. So to do that, you're going to create a couple of routes to manage that for us. So the first we're going to create is a socket IO. Okay, so I'm going to say we need to import it, right? So let's go ahead and actually import it right here. So I'm going to say from this, you're going to import also socket IO. Okay, once you have that imported, and we need to go down here and you say add socket IO, and then you say on, and then use the on. So on which event event do you want to do something? So I'm going to call this event the join event. So whenever a person joins the chat, we want to get the name of the person and broadcast it to all the other people, to alerting them that the person has joined the chat. So on join, you can say name space, and then the namespace is basically the route on which you're going to execute this action, and you're going to execute this action on the join route, and the join route is this one right here, right? So great. We're going to go ahead and define the function right here. We're going to call this function we're going to call this function let's say we're going to call this function join. So join, what we're going to go ahead and do is the following: taking a message, and then what you're going to go ahead and do is we're going to broadcast the message. You're going to get the room this is going to be room name, so room name, and the room name is going to be equals to the following. So we're going to get this room name from the session, right? Because we stored this room name inside of the session right here. So the session, you're going to say dot get, and you're going to use dot get, and you're going to pass him the room underscore name. Room underscore name is what we stored right here, because session room name is going to be the room name. Okay, so getting the room name and also getting the username. So user name. Yeah, so once you have that, and all this is going to be of type string str, so we can incorporate type hints there. So this is also going to be of type str, so you can say is equals to session dot get, and you're going to get the user name. Great. So and the username is what we stored in here as well. So you're going to get the username and the chat room. The username the username is important because you want to alert the whole room that this specific person has joined the room. So for example, Janet Doe has joined the room, and how do you know which room that you want to broadcast the message to? And that's how we're getting the room number, the room name, right? So once we have that, you're going to go ahead and simply say join room, and join room we need to import this from flask-socket. So we're going to go in here and import a couple of things from flask-socket. So from flask underscore sockets IO, import the following. So we're going to import the following, and the first we're going to import is join room. You're going to go ahead and import leave room. Also going to go ahead and import emit, right? So don't worry, we use all this in a second. I'll explain why we imported all of that. Okay, so we're going to say join room, and you're going to say join room, and you're going to pass in which room you want to join, right? You're going to pass in the name of the room, and also, yeah, that's basically it. You're going to pass in the name of the room. So join room, and you're going to say room, and the room name is going to be the room name. right there. So great. So once we have that done, we're also going to go ahead and emit all this information to the room. So we're going to pass in the status as this emit status, and then you're going to go ahead and pass in what you want to send. So we're going to say message. This is going to be a dictionary. So message, and it's gonna be a string. So string message, right, which is gonna be the key, and then the value of this is gonna be an S string, and I'm going to simply pass in the username. So I'm going to say username. So I'm going to say maybe John Doe has joined the room. So Janet Doe has joined the room. So I'm going to say the username, for example, Janet Doe, and then you can say has joined the room, just like that. And then you can use some exclamation marks, whatever you want to use, and then you're going to pass in the room in which you want to send this, emit this chat into. So we're going to go ahead and pass in it here. So we say room room is going to be equals to room name, just like that. So save that right there. So that's basically it. So you're going to go ahead and simply join the room, and then finally you're going to go ahead and emit the information, alerting everyone know that we have joined the room, right? So that's basically it. So that's how a person can join the room. So a person joins the room, you get the information from the session which has been obtained from the form, and once we have that, you're going to add the person to the room, and then finally emit information to the room, alerting the whole room that the new person has joined the room. So great. So now let's go ahead and handle how we can send different text messages and broadcast it. Okay. So let's go in here. I'm just going to go ahead and say at socket io, and then we're going to say on, and then pass in the following. So on text, right? If you get a text message, what do you want to do? We're going to say namespace is going to be equals to a / join, right? You're going to use the join namespace, and you're going to simply say dev, and you're going to simply say text, and you're going to say message, and then do the following. So message, and I'm going to simply say room name, and the room name is going to what you're going to get from the form. So I can just simply copy this right here and then paste it here, so you don't have to waste time typing that out. So I'm going to paste it right here, and then let me hit save on that. So yeah, save. Yeah, so we're going to grab the room name and then the username. Okay, so once we have that, if a person sends a message, then the on text event is going to be triggered, and then you're going to get the username and the room name, and then finally you're going to simply broadcast that message out, emit that message out to the whole room. So you're going to say emit, and you're going to pass in the following. You're going to give this emit a name. It's going to be called message, and you're going to go ahead and you say the following. So you're going to pass in what message you want to send. So I'm going to say message, going to be a string, which can be a key, and then the value, right there. The value, you're going to use this as an F string, and then you're going to say the username and then what the user said. So for example, Janet Doe : and then maybe Janet Doe say hey hi. So with Janet Doe : and then hi, right? So you're going to go ahead and simply use the S strings here. You're going to say username, and then finally you're going to say colon and then space, and then the name that the message that the person has issued out. So we're going to go ahead and pass in the message that the person has issued out. So we're going to say username colon and then the message that the person issued out, and you're going to grab that message. You're going to say message, this is going to be a variable, so we're going to say this one. You're going to say message, and then message is what you're receiving from here, right? So message, you're going to go ahead and grab the message from here. So we're going to pass in a single quotes and then message, and the reason why you need to pass in a single quotes in here is because we use double quotes on the outside. So on the inside you have to use single quotes for that to work. Okay, so don't forget that. So once we have that done, we can go ahead and specify the room. So the room is going to be which room this is message is going to be emitted to, and it's going to be the room name of that room, right? So that's basically it, how we can do that. So let me save this. Since I'm getting okay, the errors went away. Okay, so once we have this done, good, that's going to be handled for us text messages. So if a person sends a text message, you're going to get inside of this message object, and then like this message dictionary rather, and then you're going to simply emit a message. You're going to broadcast something to the whole room, and the name of that broadcast is going to be called message, and the content is going to be the username and then colon and then the name, right? And which room are we broadcasting, emitting this to? You're emitting this or broadcasting this to the room name that the user has joined. Okay, so once we have this, now let's go ahead and handle the user leaving a room. So now the user can join a room, and this is going to handle the user joining a room. The user can text messages into a room, and this is going to broadcast the message to the whole room. It's going to be handled by this. And then now I have one part where the user can leave the room, right? Because the user can click the red button and then leave the room. So let's write the logic for that. So let's say handle user leaving the room, just like that. So to do that, you're going to simply say, we can say at flask-socketio dot on, and then passing we're going to call this one on left. Okay, we're going to call it on left, and we're going to simply say namespace, or the namespace is going to be /join, because we're going to only work on the join namespace, right? So great. So once we have this done, we're going to say def, and we're going to call this one left, and we're going to pass in a message. We're going to receive a message, and the message, you're going to go ahead and broadcast the message to all the room, informing them that the person has left. So I'm going to go ahead and pass in I'm going to get the username and the username and the session and the username, the room name and the session, the room name and the username from the session, basically. So once I have these two values from the session, I'm going to go ahead and now broadcast the message to the whole room. First of all, we need to make sure that the user leaves the room. So to say that the user leaves the room, you have to use the leave room function, which we imported from socket.io from here, leave room function. So I'm going to just use the leave room function to make sure that to make sure the user leaves the room. So I'm going to say room and it equals to room name. So the user is going to leave that room, and then once the user leaves the room, you're just going to go and say session. You're going to clear. You're just going to clear the session, and the reason why you're going to clear the session is because at this part here we're going to check if the username exists within the session, right? And then direct the user to the chat room. So if the user leaves the room, you want to clear the session to make sure the user actually logged out completely of our system, right? So even if you check the username of the session, it will return none, which will redirect the user back to the index page. If you don't clear that, means that if the user joins the room and leaves the room, he will still be able to have access to that room, right? So that's why clearing that session. Okay, so once we clear the session, we're going to go ahead and do an emit broadcast a message. You're going to say status, right? And then in here, we're going to go ahead and say a message, which is going to be the body. So I'm going to say message, and the message is going to be an f string. So I'm going to use an f string right here, an f string. So an f string, and you're going to have the username variable. So we say username, and then we're going to say has left the room, just like that. So has left the room, and then we can also put maybe sad emojis or something. Okay, just like that. So the user has left the room, and then you can just also give the room a name. So we're going to say room, and then the room is going to be equals to the room name, just like that. So once I have this, I'm going to go ahead and simply save that code right there. So that's all we need for the server, functionality to work, and that's basically it for that. So now what we need to go ahead and do is actually handle how JavaScript is going to be able to talk to our back end, right? Which is going to be using socket.io to create a full-plex connection, a duplex or a full-plex connection to enable constant communication between the server and the client. So let's go ahead and do that in JavaScript. So to do that in JavaScript, we need a couple of libraries. So we need the couple of libraries to do that. So the first library that we need, if I go back into my template in here, we can get those libraries from the base.html. So you can also search for these libraries online if you wish to. You can just search for let's see what you can search for. Let's say you want to search for it's called default WebSocket. So you can socket.io JS and just press that. So CDN, just press this, and then you can get the CDN from this website right here. So you can just go ahead and simply copy the script tag and then paste it inside of your code. So copy that script tag and go back in here, and instead of the base right here, you can just go ahead and paste that script tag in the head section. So you can just say that socket io CDN, and then just place that in here. So copy, paste it, and then save that. So once you save that, it will be properly formatted, and you have the CDN there. So that's how you need to do. And one more CDN we need is the CDN for the let me just remember it. Let me just check it right here on my web page. So we have the one for the socket.io library, which is this right here, and also we need one more for the for jQuery. So you can also search for jQuery online and then get that. So you can just say jQuery CDN, so CDN, and then just search for that, and you can get the CDN from here. So you can just click on any of this, and then you can just copy the CDN from here, and then go ahead and paste it inside of your document right here. So I'm just going to copy this from here, this one too, right? I'm just going to go ahead and simply copy them and just go ahead and paste them in here. Okay, so paste them in here, and you can also get those from GitHub on my GitHub page, or you can also search for them online like I have showed you. So good. Once we have all those done, now we can go ahead and actually begin to communicate with our application to know what operations, basically allowing JavaScript to do IO with our backend. Okay, so to do that, we need to actually write the code inside of this right here. And so go back inside of the chat, and then in here you can simply write the code content in here. So we're just going to create a script tag and use the script tag for handling all the connections and stuff like that. So good. So let's create a script tag right here. So just create a JavaScript JavaScript tag here, and then in here you can go ahead and finally begin to code. So the first thing we're going to go ahead and do is define the socket. Okay, the socket IO stuff. So let's go and say let socket is going to be let socket. You're just going to leave it like that. Don't use const because you can't update const. Okay, so let's say let socket and then end with a semicolon, and then from there we're going to be using jQuery. So we're going to go ahead and get the information that you want. So say document dot ready. So document, you're going to say document, and I'm going to say dot ready, and then when document is ready, you want to do the following. So we're going to take in a function right here, a callback function, and this callback function, we call this function to do something in case the document finishes loading on our page. So we're going to say socket, and the socket you're going to be equals to the following. So we're going to say equals to io.connect connect, just like that, io.connect, and what do you want to connect? You want to connect to this is going to be a string HTTP because you're not using HTTPS, and if you go back in here you can see you're running this on HTTP. So you can just simply copy this right here, copy it and simply go in here and just simply paste it in here. So we're going to go and then /join because we want to refer to the join route, and the join route, if you go into our routes folder, is this route right here which receives the form. Okay, so we're going to simply connect to that port because all our namespaces for the IO stuff are connected to that port, like the join port and then all of that. So the namespace join port, and join. Okay, so once we have that, I'm going to say socket dot on. We are looking for a connection, so I always check on connect. So this is going to return to us on connect. Whenever we connect to the socket, it's going to return to us on connect. So we're going to check if you have an on connect event. Then what do you want to do? You want to have a callback function, and this callback function you can do the following. So in this callback function, I say socket.emit, and what do you want to emit? You want to go ahead and emit the following. So whenever a person join, what do you want to emit? So this is for the form. Once the form has been submitted, you're going to store all the form details inside of our session. And once that is done, you're going to, whenever on join event is called, right, you're going to go ahead and emit to all the room that the person has joined the server. So has joined the chat room. So let's go ahead and do that here. So we're going to call this join because we call the event join. So if you call it here, you can see we call it join, right? So join. So we're going to say on joint. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to have a function. Let's see, you're going to pass in an empty object for now, and then simply save that. So great, that's all we need for that to work. So that's basically what we need. Okay, and then down here you can have another part. So socket.on, you can pass in another event on status. So on status event. So this is going to be on join event to allow everyone that the person has joined the room, and then you're going to now check on status event, and status event is this event right here. So right here. So we're going to get that information out, and it's going to go ahead and have a callback function. So let me go back in here, and I'm going to have a callback function right here. So callback function is going to pass in data. And what you're going to go ahead and do, you're going to use arrow functions right here, and you're going to simply go ahead and get there's some part that you want. So you want to get the information from this status because this event returns to us a message. So you want to get the message from this status and then put it inside of our text area that we have, which is this right here. So we're going to go ahead and grab the ID of that text area. So we're going to simply say passing this right here. So we're going to use the $sign. So we're going to be using jQuery right here, and then passing this is going to be a string rather. So this $sign, because it's going to be an ID, and then passing this because this this part here is an ID, right? So we're using the hashtag. So so to get the chat area, we're going to say .value. So we're going to take the value, right? And the value is going to be equals to the following. So the value is going to be, we're going to be using again the jQuery, and then passing hashtag chat. So we're going to paste that chat area of ID there. We're going to say .value. We're going to get its existing value, right? Plus, right? Plus, because some for example, if the chat already exists before a user join, you want to get all the previous chats and then add to it maybe John Doe has joined the room, something like that. So to say data, the data you're getting back from this callback right here, you're getting that data here, and you're going to get the message part of that data, because if you look closely here, we are sending a message with the ID of also with the key of MSG, which is message, and that's what you're getting right here. Okay, and then from after that, you want to simply add a new line. So we want to go ahead and add /n for \n, just to skip to a new line, and then that's all. And then from there, we want to scroll back to the top of the page using jQuery, so that our charts are always on the visible area. So to do that, you're going to use chat this part right here. We're going to pass in the string hashtag, and then pass in the chat area part, and then you're going to simply go ahead and simply the dot scroll top, and then get scroll top right here. And scroll top, you're just going to go ahead and pass in the following. So scroll top and scroll top, you're going to go ahead and pass in the following. So we're going to say this the $, and because for jQuery, right, and then the strings hashtag chat area, and then simply get the very first index, and then simply say dot scroll height, which is this right here. Great, that's all we need, and then we can go ahead and simply save that. So this will just enable us to scroll back to the top. So whenever a person's join, right, whenever a person joins the room, you're going to get this emit event, this being emitted out, right, is going to return to us. The emit has a name status, so checking that you're getting that status on status emission, you're getting the data from it, and then we're just going to use that data to fill in the text value, because this is going to be the text area ID, and you're filling in its value with the value from the message, right, the message is going to be receiving from the server side. Great. Okay, so once we have this down, let's also move on to the part where we're going to be dealing with the messages. Okay, so we're going to say socket dot on, and you're going to say call the message event. So on message event, what you're going to go ahead and do is grab the data from that event, and then go ahead and simply send you're going to go ahead and let me create that arrow function the right way. So there, so great. So yeah, so once we have this done, I can just go ahead and save this. So once we have that part done, what I want to go ahead and do is simply go ahead and simply get the chat area, get the message, and then simply add the existing message to it, and then scroll again. So that's what we have done for when the user joins, and then that's something you're going to be doing for when you get a new message, because you're just basically adding the message to the text area, and then make sure that you scroll the height top, and then that's all. So that's the same you're going to be doing right here. So the only difference is that here you're not going to be using a new, you're just going to leave that part just like that. Yeah, just like that. You're just going to leave it like that. So that's all we need to do. And then finally you're going to go ahead and skip to a new line. So the message, now we're going to get the message. And if you check closely, if I go in here, message part, so which is right here, message event, you're going to go ahead and grab the messages MSG, and that's what you're specifying right here. Okay, good. So once we have that done, now we also need one in which the button gets clicked. Okay, so one which is the button gets clicked. So this button is gonna be the input chat input part, which is gonna be this one right here. When this one, you're just going to get the messages, the chat messages, and then send them over. So let's go ahead and do that right here. So we're going to say socket dot on, and the message we're going to look for on is gonna be the no, actually here we're going to be looking for actually a button event first. Okay, because we want the user first to click a button, and when the user clicks a button, we want to do certain action. So first of all, let's first get the button first. So let's look for the button action first. So we're going to say this is going to be $, and then you're going to say the name of the button is just going to be, I think it's called submission or what. Let's see. Okay, input, chat input, right? You're going to get the chat, no, not the chat input. We're going to get the submit button. Whenever the submit button is clicked, you're going to get the input, the value is within the chat field. So first of all, let's make sure the button is clicked, and you're going to add a dot on click event. On click event, what you want to go ahead and do is simply say you're going to get E, and then pass in an arrow function right here. So what you want to go ahead and do is we're going to say const text is going to be equals to, we're going to say $. We're going to go ahead and call this one, it's going to be chat input, right, which is just the name of this field right here. So chat input, and then from the chat input you're going to go ahead and get dot value, you're going to get the input, the chat within that chat input, and then from there we're going to go ahead and set the chat input value to back to 0. So we're going to set it back to 0. So get the chat input and then set the new value to just an empty string, and then just make sure that you are clearing the input after the user submits a given chat. The input now should be free for him to type in a new chat, right? So I'm going to simply say socket dot emit, and I'm going to go ahead and say you're going to emit the text, and emit the text, if you look closely, is this one right here, which get the messages and then broadcast the message to everyone else. So you're going to call that, and you're going to simply pass in the message that you want to pass in form of an object MSG, and it's going to be equals to the text that the user typed in. And once we grab that message, it's going to go ahead and broadcast it to all the individuals in that room through this emit event. So yeah, and this emit event is a message event which is going to be received by this message part, and then going to go ahead and add the message now into our text field. So that's basically it. So good, that's basically what we need to do. And yeah, that's it. And one thing you can also do is to handle the part where the user can leave a room. Okay, where the user can leave a room, and you can do that right here. So the part where the user can leave a room, you can simply go ahead and do that right here. So you can just say const leave room, and it's going to be equals to the following. So we're going to go have a function right here, a function. So function, it's going to be a function right here, an arrow function. What you're simply going to go ahead and you're going to say socket dot emit. You're going to go ahead and emit the left, and then left, we're going to go ahead and pass in a message. We don't going to pass in any message, and you're going to have a callback function. This callback function is going to do the following. So this callback function, what it's simply going to do is going to say socket dot disconnect. So socket dot disconnect. So socket dot disconnect. This disconnect, this to make sure that we disconnect from the server, and then you're going to go window dot location dot location dot href and you're going to set the href to be equals to the following. So the href, you're going to set it to be just the index route. So I'm going to use a Python the Python Flask URL for here. So URL underscore 4, and I've already explained this later on, so in the other part of the video. So you're going to redirect the user to just the index page where the user can decide to join another room. So that's basically it for this logic right here. So you can just hit Control and save to save that there. So that's all we need for this to work. Yeah, that's all we need for this functionality to be able to work and to be able to add new users and to do all of that stuff. So yeah, that's basically it. And I hope I didn't skip any part or make any mistakes. So once we have all this done, let's just go ahead and test this out. So let's make sure the server is running. So I'm just scroll down. Okay, stop running. So I'm going to go ahead and start this development server again. So once it's running, I'm just going to go back inside of here, and let's just refresh this page. So submit, just say okay. Actually, let's just go back to index page, or index page right here, and let's say you're going to join as John Doe, and then our room is going to be chat room, just like that, and just hit submit. Now we're in the room. So let's go here and join the room again. Also, let's join as Janet Doe, and I'm going to say chat room right here, and then simply join. So I'm in the chat room. So let's try to send a message and say hello. Okay, now one thing I notice is that if a person joins the room, it's not being broadcasted, right? And even if I send a message hello, nothing happens. The message doesn't get sent to everyone. So there's a problem with this button right here. It's not sending the message. So let's go ahead and try to see where the cause of that error is. So I think the problem is inside of my buttons right here. So the buttons dot on click. So let me just check if I get this name right. So yeah, I got the name right. So button btn, submit btn. So I'm checking if the submit btn. Okay, I think we made a mistake somewhere inside of our coding part here. So let's just trace this from the top of the code. So this one we have it right here, and it ends here, right? Okay, now I made an error right there. So I want to move all of this code from here. I want to move it inside of the ready block. So there, so I want to save it there. So yeah, that's where it's supposed to be. So it's supposed to be inside of the ready function right here, the ready part here. So that's supposed to be there. Yeah, so once it's done, let's go ahead and try this one more time. So let me just go back in here, and let me just refresh this, resubmit. So let's refresh this, and then resubmit. So now everything works. Let me just leave the room. Okay, the leave room button is not working, and then leave room button is not working. So let's go ahead and fix that part also. So I think the problem is just my structure in my code here is what's giving me an issue. So this thing say const leave room, and we need to call this button at some point whenever a function is clicked. So whenever a function is clicked, we want to call the leave room function. And the leave room, I got the spelling right wrong, so it's gonna be, there's an e right here. So whenever this function is clicked, we are going to, whenever this button is clicked, we are calling on click, we are calling this function right here called leave room. And what this is, that's going to go ahead and execute this part where we are going to leave the room. So yes, once I have that done, I can just click on refresh this as well, refresh this as well, and let's try to leave the room. So leave room, leave room. So it leaves the room but doesn't redirect us to index. Okay, I don't know why that's not working. So you're going to say url_for, and then that's going to be index. Yeah, window.location.href is going to be equals to this right here. So url_for, and then the index route, which is this route right here. So for some reason you're not getting being redirected. So if I click on room, it just says none has left room, and then also here is saying none has left room. So that's an issue right there. So let's go ahead and see where I made an error. So okay guys, so I found out the error. The error was, you can see when I open up the console, you can see it's here, it says a socket.disconnect. I think I got the spelling of disconnect wrong. So that I got the spelling of disconnect wrong here. You can see that's not the spelling of disconnect. So let's go ahead and actually fix it. So disconnect, this is C here. So disconnect, right? So yeah, that's should fix it. So if I now click on this, let me try to refresh this, and then refresh this, also refresh this part, and then click on leave room. Now we leave the room. So the leave room works. Okay, now let's join another room and see. So I'm just gonna close up the console. It's gonna be John Doe, and let's say chat room. So it's gonna be chat room, just like that. And then it's going to go ahead and join the chat room. And in here it's going to say Janet Doe, and it's gonna be chat room. So submit this, and also you have seen the chat room as we have broadcasted that Janet has joined the chat room for both rooms, right? For all of the clients inside of the room. So we have it here on this client and on of this client. So let's try to send a message, say hello Janet, Janet here. So hello Janet here, and let's just go ahead and post this information. And you can see this message is not being posted. So what's the cause of this error? So let's actually try to inspect this and see what's the cause of the error. So if I say hello and then post this, it's not being there's no error here. So actually we have an issue here. You can say object of type is not JSON serializable. I think the error is on our server side. So let's try to see which part of the server is causing the error. So we have here exception through thread. You have the error right here. So thread message right here, emit message. So on routes on line 47. Okay, so on routes on line 47. So I go to routes on line 47 right here. So yes. Oh guys, so I just saw I did a very serious silly error. So the error which I just did here is right here. So I forgot this a dictionary. So we need a key value pair right there. So I forgot that part there. So sorry for that. And now I think that problem should now be fixed. So if I go back, let's check if our server is running. Yeah, the server should be running. Yeah, it is running. So now let's go back in here into our browser, and let's try to send a message again. So let me just leave the room, leave both rooms. So leave both rooms here. So I'm just going to go ahead and close up this console part. And I'm just going to go ahead and join as John Doe, and then finally pass in the chat room right here. And in here I'm going to go ahead and click on submit. I've joined, so I'm going to go ahead and pass in as Janet Doe and his chat room and join. So we're both in the same chat room. You can see we have been alerted that Janet Doe has joined. So we say hello. This is from John. Okay, and then let me just go ahead and post this, and you can see hello, this is from John, and it has been broadcasted. Hello, this is from John. You can say hello, this is from Janet. Janet, so you get that spelling right. So post this. Now you can see it has been posted in both sides of our application. So you can see that information being posted on both sides of our rooms, right, to all the clients inside of our room. So that's how you can create a simple chat application in Flask. So using sockets, web sockets and stuff like that. So the only error which I made here was forgot the colon, so sorry for that. And for the chats, the only part I made an error here was for the connect, the spelling of disconnect. So sorry for those errors. So yeah, that should have marked the end of the tutorial. If you guys are you like these tutorials, or you have any future recommendations, let me know in the comment section below. I made this slides using SlideGo. And thank you for watching. If you're new to the channel, please kindly consider subscribing, because most of my who watch my channel haven't actually subscribed. So kindly consider subscribing, liking this video, and sharing this content with anyone who you think might find it helpful. Okay, also hit the notification bell so that you can stay updated for future videos on web development, data science, machine learning, computer vision, web development, back-end development, and all stuff like that. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Keep safe.